Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markowitz, and today we're getting an update from Erik Wetterling, also known as the Hedgeless Horseman. And you can follow Erik over at thehedgelesshorseman.com. We'll put a link to that down below. And Erik, always great getting you on the show to get your thoughts on the junior resource sector. We were talking off mic here about some of the companies that are on your radar. A couple companies we haven't talked about before that we'll talk about today, starting off with West Point Gold Corp. West Point Gold Corp's traded on the TSXV under the ticker WPG. And this is one where they've had a name change. People may remember the prior company. I'll let you unpack that for folks, but they're operating in Nevada and Arizona, and they've got a couple projects in Nevada that look of interest: Tip Top, Jefferson Canyon, Jefferson North. But it's really their gold chain project in Arizona, pretty close to the prior producing Moss Mine that Mako Mining just picked up previously with Elevation Gold. They've got this gold chain project there, and they believe it's a lot higher grade, but it could be amenable to open pit mining. They're going to be doing a lot of exploration there. Maybe walk us through the value proposition that you see at West Point Gold.
Yeah, I think it's a quite interesting story. I have been a shareholder of Gold 79, which is the predecessor company. They merged with, I think they were called like Bullet Point Gold or something like that to create this new West Point Gold. I thought the predecessor super cheap. I mean, I really like their gold chain project and the fact that they have their Jefferson Canyon project as well, which I think they can sell 80% to Kinross for 10 million USD. And I mean, I think it's kind of likely that they're going to exercise that, and then West Point keeps 20%. I mean, 10 million USD is what, like 30 million CAD or something. But it never got any real traction. I mean, the share structure was super bloated, bunch of warrants out, and there are still a bunch of warrants out. But yeah, so it's like the market cap compared to the project portfolio didn't really match. That's why I, got into it. But they were never able really to get off the ground, in a sense that they were stuck in this, raise a bit of money, do some really cheap exploration work. Even though it's favorable results, it didn't do much. And then I saw, some stuff happening now with the merger of like Bullet Point, and then recently Andrew Bowering came in as a strategic advisor. They put a new CEO in who is from Chorus Gold, which got sold to Anglo Gold a while back for I think $450 million or something. I mean, I see it as a kind of repackaged company, let's say, with more life in it and better backing and whatnot. So I redug into it recently, and I was going to say I think it's really interesting. I mean, it's in the US, which we would say or could say is getting better simply because of the new administration. And I think, the way I look at it is that their Tyro vein target or Tyro zone, it starts at surface. It's 1 kilometer or so long. There's trenches all over the place. There's historic mining. You can look at the drill results they put out. Broadly spaced drilling, which shows that it looks to be continuous. And they have an exploration target of 15.6 million tons to 31.2 million tons, grading 1.5 to 2.5 grams per ton AU. So, also, which they put out I think they put out a news release today where they show that, okay, the previous drilling, since it was RC, really didn't test the idea that there was mineralization in, I think it was the hanging wall or the footwall. I can't remember exactly, which actually starts at surface as well. So now they believe that the mineralized envelope is not, the average zone is not 50 meters, but maybe up to 80 meters, which obviously can do quite a bit, especially if that zone, that extra, let's say 30 meters, would be starting at surface as well. So bigger price, better economics, et cetera, et cetera. So, I've started to do some notes for myself. I've actually nibbled on some stock here. I know there's a big warrant overhang. I own some of the warrants. And they recently, I think, put out a news release that they started some promotional campaign. So, it looks like you have this warrant overhang maybe around these levels, and they're trying to meet that with some, promotion. So that might get exercised, because in that case, they're going to have pretty good amount of money, actually, because they did a raise of $6 million a few months back. And the idea is that they want to have a drill going, 24/7, basically year round, if they have the funding for it. And then you also have the possibility of Kinross exercising that option, which is almost like half the enterprise value today. So the way I look at it from a risk reward perspective is that it looks quite likely that, this exploration target that they have, I mean, it seems realistic. And in that case, that's a good grade near surface, let's say 1 million ounces at least, in Arizona, next to the Moss mine, which mined, I think, 0.5 gram or something. So it's like, it should work. There's been historic heap leaching on this project, actually. So I don't think there's any obvious thing that could stand in the way of this. And if you think that's probable, that, okay, they will delineate something that can get mined and will probably get mined because it's in Arizona on patented ground, and the economics should be very favorable if you compare it to, the Moss mine, which, Mako Mining just actually acquired. I mean, that's a pretty good probable bird in the hand to have already. And then they have, the other zones they could be exploring for. And then they have actually a few other projects as well. So I actually really like this one because, again, I think they have probable margin of safety, not in the sense that they have a economic study and a big resource right now, but I think it's a good likelihood of them having a mine, basically getting to a mine at Tyro. And then in that case, then it's a question of, how much more are they going to find? So, yeah, I mean, at this market cap, and I think that again has to do with the warrant overhang that keeps it kind of capped a bit. But let's say if they get through that and they raise, or they get in a bunch of millions, so let's say they have, $10 million to actually do near surface exploration, just proving up the Tyro Main Zone, because I don't know, I can just imagine that Mako, for example, are well aware of this project, and there's another junior, Arizona Gold and Silver, nearby. So yeah, I think this could potentially be like a mining district of sorts, and there's already a fledgling mid-tier. I don't know how you would classify Mako, but they're there. And yeah, so I actually took another look. I wish I did it earlier, but I think it's actually one of the relatively low risk but like probable upside exploration stories out there that I can see.
Okay. Yeah, it looks interesting because they've consolidated 2 other companies, consolidated the land package. They have multiple projects besides this. Like we say, they've got the Tip Top and the Jefferson Canyon, but Gold Chain being the area of focus for exploration. And even at Gold Chain, they have the potential for step outs on some of the targets, some of their other projects. So they kind of have 100% on this Gold Chain, but then they have the JV with Kinross on the Jefferson Canyon. So they've kind of got a prospect generator model where they're partnered with a major on some of the projects, but then they've got the 100% owned project that they're digging deep on. And they've even got, it looks like even on their maps, like a lot of prior producing mines all around them. There's like 3 or 4 mines on some of these maps. So this is an area that is a prolific area for mining. We'll keep tabs on it. It's an interesting one to bring to our attention, Erik. So I appreciate you bringing up West Point Gold. Let's shift over to a silver company, though, just to balance it out. Silver47. Silver47 straight on the TSXV under the ticker AGA. A lot of people will recognize the name Gary Thompson from Brixton Metals, who's on the team here at Silver47. What has you attracted to this story?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too many good, so let's say, silver-focused stories out there. This is polymetallic because it's a VMS system, but it's a huge land package in Alaska. I think Alaska, since it's in the US, and I think Alaska specifically has seen some, quite pro-mining headlines recently. They own a 60-kilometer trend of VMS mineralization. They already have a 15.6 million ton resource at 335.7 grams per ton AG equivalent, containing 168.6 million ounces AG equivalent. Note AG equivalent, it's not 168 million ounces of pure silver. But still, I mean, it's a huge land package. They have targets all over the place. And with this recent upsize in the financing, because the first announcement on the financing was that they were going to raise $3 million. And then, you're kind of stuck in this position where it's like, let's say you can get half of that in the ground. It's like, it's still Alaska. It's still, relatively remote. And that's not going to amount to too much drilling. So you risk the, what we've talked about quite a bit of times, the thing where it's like, okay, you drill, I don't know, 15 holes or something, but everybody knows that, okay, as soon as they are out, they don't have any money, they're going to be needing to raise cash. So it's going to be discounted almost immediately, and then it's going to be discounted even further going into the next obvious, let's say, material news release, which is going to be placement down the line in order to even drill again. So now they upsize it from 3 million to 8 million. Then they should be able to do quite some work up there in Alaska. So I think this is one of those swing for the fences kind of stories where I don't think it's pricing in much now. They obviously have a lot of blue sky potential. And I mean, most of the zones are wide open. And like one slide says, it's conceptually estimated that 10 million in drilling may add 8 to 12 million ton of underground material. And the current resource is 15.6 million tons. So that's quite a jump if they are able to do that. And let's say that gets some traction. It gets recognized. Hey, this is a new VMS camp that is also silver rich. Yeah, I simply think it's one of those where, theoretically, are there any guarantees? Absolutely not. I mean, it has to be of some size, obviously, to pay for the infrastructure and all that. It's not like super remote, but it's, quite remote. But with those grades, they're seeing the amount of targets and all that. I don't know how much they need to find for it to go above that, like, critical threshold for development, maybe 300 million ounces AG equivalent. I'm just absolutely speculating here. But yeah, I think this is one of those interesting stories that if things go well, it can go really well. There's no guarantees of that happening, but you can just imagine if you fast forward a few years and they can keep up the momentum of drilling, having success, more people like the story, can raise more money, drilling, and it just grows and grows and grows for years to come. I mean, I guess that would be the kind of blue sky scenario, because it looks like actually, a quality project in obviously Alaska, which is, I would say, considered a tier 1 jurisdiction. I think it's mostly the remoteness of many projects there that's the main hurdle. So again, a high risk, high reward story in that sense, but I think it's not really pricing in that this is going to be a new VMS camp.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, what this team can do with polymetallic. The polymetallic deposits are harder for people to evaluate, but they're reporting in silver equivalent ounces, but a nice mix of silver, lead, zinc, copper, and gold. So a lot of metals to choose from there. But if it's a big VMS camp, those are worthwhile. And a lot of majors are interested in those kind of projects because they have scale. As you say, Alaska's a good jurisdiction. They got a good team. They got Erik Sprott and Crescat in the mix as strategic shareholders. So a lot of the stuff in strong hands. And then they've got money raised, so they're not going to have that overhang of needing to raise capital immediately. It just really comes down to, can they deliver with the drill bit? So a great story to follow along with as a true exploration stock. And I appreciate you bringing up Silver47 to our audience here too. Two new companies we've talked about here today, Erik. So West Point and Silver47. We'll keep following along with the news flow, and appreciate you giving our audience an update. If people want to follow along with Erik's work, definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you over to the Hedgeless Horseman website where you can follow along with the companies he's writing up, or some of the YouTube videos he creates where he covers a whole series of different companies and rants on the markets and what he sees as the value drivers in the sector. So, Erik, always great having you on the show. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Shad. And as always, consider me biased. I own shares of both companies.